Their codes were broken. Our trap was set. On the morning of June 4th, 1942, I stood on the flight deck of the USS Enterprise. The rising sun painted the Pacific in gold. Deceivingly calm for the graveyard was about to become. Beneath us stretched 200 miles of ocean toward Midway Island, and beyond that, the pride of the Imperial Japanese Navy. For carriers Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, the same ones that had devastated Pearl Harbor just 6 months earlier. They believed they were steaming toward another easy victory. But what they didn't know was we had been reading their mail for weeks. My name is Norman Dusty Cly, Lieutenant Junior Grade, a dive bomber pilot with Scouting Squadron 6 aboard the Enterprise. Born in Coffeyville, Kansas, I graduated from a Naval Academy in 1938 and earned my wings in 1941. I'd seen combat in the Marshall Islands raids and thought I understood war. But nothing prepared me for what would unfold that day. The destruction of Japan's elite carrier force in minutes, a moment that shifted the balance of power in the Pacific. At 0400 hours, in a ready room thick with cigarette smoke and tension, our Air Group Commander, Lieutenant Commander Wade McCluskey, briefed us. Intelligence from Station HYPO had pinpointed the enemy force. For carriers with full air wings, escorted by battleships, cruisers, and destroyers. These weren't just any carriers. They were the Hard Japan Strike Force, the Kido Butai. Together, they carried nearly 250 aircraft and some of the best-trained pilots in the world. But we had the advantage. We knew their plan, their timing, and their location. The Japanese intended to strike Midway at dawn, wait for our carriers to respond, and then ambush them. What they didn't know was that we were already in position. Nimitz had taken a bold risk, sending our 3 carriers, Enterprise, Yorktown, and Hornet, to lie in wait. Our orders were clear. Wait until their decks were full of aircraft refueling and rearming, then hit them hard. By 0600, the Enterprise flight deck was control chaos. Colored jerseys moved with precision, red shirts loading bombs, purple fueling aircraft, brown checking systems. I climbed into my SPD Dauntless, Bureau number 639. My rear gunner, John Snowden, a quiet man from Illinois, was already checking his twin .30 caliber guns. "Morning, Mr. Cly," he said. "Going to be hot today." We launched at 0700. Fighters took off first, then the torpedo bombers, 14 TBD Devastators lumbering into the sky. Last came the dive bombers. I was number 2 in the 3rd Division. McCluskey would lead us all. Launching from a carrier was always dangerous. Full throttle, the island rushing past, wheels lifting just before the edge. We climbed, forming up over the Pacific. At 19,000 feet, oxygen masks on, we flew northwest in silence, searching. We never found Hornet's group. McCluskey, facing the choice of turning back or pushing forward, chose to gamble. Fuel gauges dropped. We reached the intercept point, nothing but empty ocean. Then a glint of white below, a lone Japanese destroyer racing northeast. McCluskey bet everything and followed it. 20 tense minutes later, we saw them. 4 Japanese carriers, aircraft on deck, clustered in 2 groups. The enemy was unaware. Their Zeros were down low, finishing off our torpedo squadrons. This was it. Scouting 6, take the left. Bombing 6, the right, McCluskey ordered. But confusion reigned. Both squadrons dove on Kaga. I pushed forward, nosed over into a dive. Acceleration was instant and brutal. The altimeter unwound, 18, 000, 15, 000, 12, 000 feet. Anti-aircraft fire exploded around us. On Kaga's deck, I saw a crew running. Aircraft being refueled, bombs waiting. Perfect timing. At 2,500 feet, I released my 1,000-pound bomb and pulled back hard. The Dauntless groaned. 9 GS crushed me. I leveled out just above the water. Snowden shouted, "Direct hit!" Forward elevator. Kaga's deck erupted in flame. Gallagher hit aft. Within seconds, she was engulfed from bow to stern. Simultaneously, Dick Best, realizing the error, peeled off with 2 wingmen and dove on Akagi. His bomb pierced the deck and exploded in the hangar. Fires tore through the ship. Meanwhile, Yorktown's dive bomber struck Soryu with 3 direct hits. The carrier became a pillar of flame. In 5 minutes, 3 of Japan's 4 carriers were mortally wounded. Smoke plumed into the sky. Ships burned. Bodies were thrown into the sea. Aircraft, fueled and armed, detonated in chain reactions. Kaga's forward elevator launched into the air, crashing hundreds of yards away. Crew leapt overboard into burning oil. But Hiryu remained. Hidden by rain, she launched a counterattack. Yorktown was hit by bombs and torpedoes, ultimately abandoned. Still, her sacrifice bought time. That afternoon, we launched again. 24 dive bombers found Hiryu at 1700. We struck her with 4 bombs. She burned through the night and was scuttled by morning. The Kido Butai, once the terror of the Pacific, ceased to exist. The cost was staggering. Of 14 torpedo bombers from Enterprise, only 4 returned. Hornet's Torpedo 8 was wiped out. 15 planes, 29 men, 1 survivor, Ensign George Gay. He floated for 30 hours, watching the battle unfold. Their sacrifice drew the Zeros low, opening the skies for us. Without them, we'd never have reached the carriers. Afterward, I stood on the deck under a quiet night sky. The adrenaline gone, exhaustion set in. I thought of Snowden, wounded but alive. I thought of Waldron's men, Torpedo 8 flying to certain death. And I thought of the Japanese sailors I'd helped kill. Young men like me, fighting for their country. War isn't clean or glorious. It's young men dying far from home. Midway wasn't just a victory. It was a turning point. Japan lost 4 irreplaceable carriers and over 3,000 men, including 100 of their most experienced pilots. Their training couldn't keep up. They started the war with 6 large carriers. After Midway, only 2 remained. They built new ships, but never again fielded pilots capable of using them effectively. Our victory came from many places. Intelligence officers breaking Japanese codes. Damage control crews saving Yorktown in 72 hours. Pilots like McCluskey, who risked everything following a destroyer wake. Dick Best, who changed targets mid-dive and delivered the fatal blow. Waldron, who led his men knowing they wouldn't return. These were the men who changed history. I survived the war, flew 85 combat missions, and retired as a captain in 1962. McCluskey became a rear admiral, never seeking recognition. George Gay spent his life honoring his fallen squadron. Dick Best, who struck Akagi, never flew again due to lung damage from faulty oxygen. He lived until 2001. All of them carried the weight of Midway. The wrecks of Akagi and Kaga were found recently, deep on the Pacific floor. Silent tombs, war graves. The Pacific is quiet now, traveled by merchants instead of warships. Japan and America, once enemies, are now close allies. The legacy of Midway is not just strategic, it's human. Sacrifice, courage, intelligence, and luck converging in a moment that changed the world. Midway teaches us that freedom isn't free. It's earned by those who dive through flak, decode enemy plans, repair ships in days, who go in knowing they may not return. When tyranny threatens, free people rise. Ordinary individuals, facing impossible odds, can tip the balance of history. On a clear June morning,